request, or if Tom or Henry want to jump in and we can kind of talk about a few things. Let's see. Kay, I got a question. I'm pretty content with staying solo currently, but there's times when I know contracting out some assets or audio would make the process far faster. Do you have any experience in hiring contract work or commission work for games? What advice do you have? Yep, we do hiring. Hey, Tom. We do hiring and contract stuff all the time, like all the time. So I would say from somebody sitting in your position as a studio owner, spend time being very specific and clear about what you need and when you need it done by, and then take a look at all of those items and figure out what your budget is for the project. And you're going to have to make some, unless you're independently wealthy or you're like Rockstar Games or something, you're going to have to make some decisions on what you are spending for what assets. And then the other piece of advice I would give you as somebody who's sitting here in this channel right now is that we in this community have access to a lot of people that are very talented and very passionate and would be willing to help folks out for a paid gig at a reasonable price. And one of the biggest issues that you're going to have as a studio owner is just knowing where to go to get the right talent. And Tom and I at Multivarious, we've spent a lot of time bringing on people, contracting people. We have wasted a lot of money bringing on the wrong people. Even people you think would be amazing. I tell this story all the time, but we worked on a big project for a AAA studio a couple of years ago, and we needed a senior level designer, actually a senior level designer lead. And we brought this person on who had previously worked on Borderlands 3, among other games. Really like portfolio just shone through. It was really amazing stuff. Brought him on, and in his first 4 weeks, he did absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then we had to give him a chance. We're like, okay, well, here's what we need. Here's our expectations. In 2 weeks, we want to see this. And he's like, okay, I can do that. Did absolutely nothing. And we ended up, because we got him through a talent placement agency, we ended up having to pay, I don't remember the exact number, but it was something like $20,000 or $22,000 to get him on board. And we ended up losing $22,000 for nothing. So it's pretty challenging. So I would recommend, if you are starting to look at that, maybe come in at another one of these mentoring sessions, or you can ping us separately, and we can help you out so that you don't waste time and money.
One thought I had from the question was it kind of depends on, because especially when you're going from solo to not solo, that's kind of like the biggest jump you can do, sort of. So you really gotta know because in most cases, no matter what, you're probably not gonna be, when you're going from one person to two people, you probably want somebody who's willing to wear a lot more hats than you actually think you need them to wear, because it's just going to help immensely to have a second pair of eyes on every aspect of the game. And, if you're trying to keep the core design like to yourself, and you don't want whoever you're hiring to have any influence on what the ideas are or what the project is, then you just, make sure you keep that in mind. But if you are open to like having somebody who's able to give you feedback on stuff outside of what you're strictly hiring them for, it's probably going to do a lot more good in a two-person operation than, when you start to get into bigger studios. Then it's a lot more like, yeah, you're just trying to hire somebody to build assets and be part of a pipeline. But when you're that small, it's like you're probably going to want to weigh more heavily like a generalist than you might potentially be thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Tom, can you do me a favor? I don't know if you saw, we're getting a review alert. I think one of our partners has been promoting the stream, so we've gotten a bunch of joins like really fast.
Yeah.
Can you see to that and make sure
Yeah.
it's all
They
good?
all look normal.
Yeah, I think they're
Everybody's
all
yeah, they got
legit, but
community members.
um,
Um
can you just do that while Henry? You
yeah, I'm
wanna?
looking at it right now. It's
Okay,
all good.
cool. Henry?
Cool. I just wanted to chime in really quick, especially when you're switching from solo to getting other people. One thing that wasn't brought up yet, but is vital, is get legal counsel. Again, through our networks, Chris and Tom can get you hooked up, but there are some great folks legal wise. And before you get anybody doing any work for you, you need it to be very clearly documented what the work is for, what their compensation is, and specifically who has ownership. This is where I've seen a lot of indies fall apart, is they didn't have their legal ducks in a row. And then there was massive questions about who owned what, and it ended up costing everything in the long run. So make sure you get that worked out from the beginning.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do a lot in the accelerator and here in the Sandbox incubator about prepping folks to make sure they are ready to bring people on. One of our accelerator companies, really cool project. I won't say who it is, but they had something like, I don't remember. I think it was like 18 plus people had touched that game at some point, and they had no documentation for anything. So it was like they didn't even know who owned the game, who owned the design, who owned the art assets. And so that's a part that we can also help you with as well in getting those things situated. We have connections to lawyers. Now you're going to have to pay for those services. If you're a part of the Sandbox like paid system, the professional members, there's certain things we can do to help kind of alleviate some of those costs, but it's really worth it, particularly in the beginning, to carve out a couple of $1,000s to make sure you've got the documents that you need properly, because man,
Yeah. And
it
if
can
you
really
need to,
bite you in the butt.
yeah. And if you need to work before you have that together, best thing to do is just take really meticulous crediting, like take it seriously, have your like design document be like, this is where every asset came from. This is who made these scripts, and it's there are tools that can help with that as well, but that's at least going to help you build those documents after the fact when you got the budget and you're ready to do that.
And
Yeah.
even sorry, go ahead, Henry. No, go ahead, Henry.
I was say, even just doing a simple document, just a single sheet of, your company's letterhead at the top and saying work for hire contract, put in the scope of what they're going to do for you, what their compensation is, and then a little note at the bottom. Everything developed and paid for in this way becomes ownership of the company. At least then you have something that can be used to, make the legal argument in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Generally, I tell people the three documents, particularly if you own a studio, the three documents you absolutely need are an operating agreement, which determines who of the owners is doing what and what they are getting in exchange. So in essence, that's where the equity, the stocks, if you will, they're not called stocks in LLCs, but the member units are going and what the expectation is. So here at Multivarious, everyone who's an owner has a certain percentage of the company. We have member units, and that's changed over time. So, we've had members leave, and then they give their units back to the various members of the company in some way. So you need to have a document that says that, because what if you've got a partner and then that partner just leaves, or the partner dies? Like, what happens to those units, right? And one of the things that I always say is no one gives a shit about any of this until money starts to get involved. Like when you start working on a game, it's super exciting and everyone's like, oh yeah, we're working on this really cool project. It's a lot of fun. Nobody cares because there's no money involved. But then what if you end up hitting it big and now all of a sudden you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, or maybe even millions of dollars? Then all of a sudden people have a very vested interest in what's going on. So that operating agreement. The next thing is your assignment of copyright, which is what Henry was kind of alluding to. That'll be a part of your contractual agreement, your work for hire agreement, where you will be like, the basics are, I'm not your lawyer, so make sure that you actually talk to a lawyer, but the basics of a work for hire agreement are like, here's the company, here's the purpose of the agreement, and that's usually like a paragraph. Your company is going to offer blah, blah, blah. It's going to offer, $10,000 in 2 tranches based on these milestones. And then the contract individual is going to offer, these 3D art assets broken down. So it's all very clear about who's offering what. And then both of you sign it. So that's your sort of work for hire agreement / assignment of copyright. And then having a good NDA is also valuable, a non-disclosure agreement, so that you can have that. But you just never know. I mean, even Tom, remember we worked on a project. This was an internal project many years ago. This is before COVID. And one of the people that was working on us was working with us, a community member. Like, we've known him for a long time. They had been helping with the project, and they ended up leaving in a really like bad, negative sense. It was one of those things where for whatever reason, it became really hostile, and it didn't need to. And I had a conversation like with this person numerous times, and eventually they brought out like the lawyer word, I'm gonna sue you kind of thing. And as soon as somebody says that, the whole tenor of the conversation changes. As soon as somebody's like, hey, this is gonna become a legal matter, then you as the business owner or the partner or whatever, you have to really be mindful of how you say things, how you put things in text and emails, because that will come back to you. And so I had Tom go into the project, and I was just like, hey, can you go through and catalog everything that this person worked on and let me know how much effort it would be for us to just go in, remove his stuff, and rebuild it from scratch. Now, we didn't necessarily need to do that because we had them sign a agreement. Technically, Multivarious owned all of the work for that project that they worked on. But just to be safe, in case we actually did end up getting sued and it went to court, I wanted to be able to go into court and be like, hey, we removed all of his work and Tom rebuilt it from scratch. And, that was like an extra level of precaution. But it was a pain in the ass, It required Tom to have to go through and do an inventory analysis on all of it. And then I think it ended up being he didn't actually have that much stuff in there to replace, but...
Right, yeah, it was, it's like kind of thing where it helps to have source control, because source control shows you exactly who worked on what and when, and you can just be like, let me look at all of their changes, count the files, So, and I mean, if you're working on a game and you don't have source control, I want to take a step. If that's the case, we gotta step back and get on some, because that's kind of the most risky thing I can imagine, is not having source control for a project. But usually that's like almost not even mentioned because it's so ubiquitous, and that's just let us know if you're working on or you don't know source control. That's whatever you choose, Git or Tortoise or Perforce or what, plastic or whatever, it's a lifesaver. It comes with its own technical overheads. You might lose a little bit of time because people misuse the tool, but it's gonna protect you in the long run and make it possible to even discern quantitatively about the history of the project, and it's
absolutely
huge, and it's checkpoints for every step of the design process. I can't live without them.
Yeah, absolutely. It saves a lot. We got so many horror stories about not having version control, including internally at Multivarious. But so ultimately, how does one set something up like that? You will want to work with a lawyer, and we could help you out. And I could also. So I do offer, if you want to say, I do offer. I'm willing to talk to people sort of individually about how to construct an agreement, and you could use that. But again, I will say I'm not a lawyer and I'm not your lawyer. So you can use my experience and knowledge to help create something that will work for you. But in every situation, even if we were to create a document together, I would recommend having a lawyer run by it at least spend an hour or so to kind of like scan through it and make sure everything is good, because there's always ways to maneuver around things. Plus, every state is a little bit different. So if you're hiring someone from out of state, there might be different laws regarding contract negotiation and pricing and all that stuff. So, all right, we got another question here. We've got a couple minutes left on this stream from Moosler on our Twitch stream. Says, are team members typically paid hourly, salary, or by task? Just wondering. The answer is it depends. So team members, in the sense of like owners of the company, are generally paid what's called a guaranteed payment, which is sort of like salary, but that's heavily dependent on if you even have any money in the bank account. So if you don't have any money, then your owners aren't getting paid anything. If you are talking about an employee, there are employee laws to protect them about how they get paid and things like that. And so you have to figure out how to navigate and pay those appropriately. And if they're technically like a W-2 employee, you're also going to have to pay your taxes, and you're going to have to pay your employment insurance. And okay, that changes from state to state. So it depends where you're at. Though most of the time, the vast majority of the time, when you're just talking about an indie studio trying to get some work done for, some project, you need some asset or whatever, it's going to be a task-based contract. So we need this done by this date, and it has to be approved, at this level to make sure it hits the needs of the project. And in exchange, we'll pay you X amount of money. So a very standard contract would be like, hey, we need these assets done in this way, and we need them done by this date, and we'll go through an approval process of those. We'll usually pay you something up front. Depends on how complex. Sometimes it might be a 50-50 where it's like, we'll give you 50% of the payment up front, 50% on completion. If it's a larger project that requires like multiple milestones, it might be like, oh, we'll pay you 20% up front, and then we'll pay you 20% at each milestone until you get to 100%. So you're going to do something like that. Oh, my light is falling on me here. Oh my God, stop. But that's generally how you're going to do it. It's going to be a task-based system. And then you do have to be very careful too, depending on the state you're in, because if you hire somebody as a contractor, for example, a 1099 contractor instead of a W-2 employee, there's very specific tax rules that determine, is this person an employee or is this person a contractor? One of those is that contractors, in general, again, painting with a broad brush here, but contractors are able to do the work on their own time using their own equipment. So if you bring somebody on and you require them to be at your office for a certain period of time and they have to use your computers, the IRS is going to consider that an employee. And so that's how it is. Now it's different. Like Tom and I, we do a lot of client work through Multivarious, which is a little bit different because that's not like hiring someone as a contract individual, but sometimes we work on a project that requires us to use specific technology. And so that technology will be provided to us by our client. And so that could be something where you need to use some specific whatever to make it work. But as an indie developer, you're going to want to hire people on as a 1099 contractor, because at that point, you as the company are not responsible for their taxes or their benefits or anything like that. They're responsible for handling all of that stuff. All right. Well, we actually came in at 4:00, right on the nose. So, Tom, Henry, you got any last thoughts before we wrap up our first mentor session of 2026?
Oh, I kind of came in during the middle of a hairy conversation. I kind of felt like jumping in, but I didn't want to like break the flow because it's heavy stuff, like the way everything is right now. And I definitely resonate with just the call that it's just up to the community to join hands and look out for each other. And that's like what big part of what we do. So like we're here for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, glad I made it for Henry and I both teach right before this time block. So So we're just like here to help
Here we are.
in general.
Yeah, I was running a kid to a track meet, so yeah, my feedback is just, you know, the same as Tom was mentioning with the community. There's a lot of folks that have specialties that can help out. So the same as we mentioned the legal, if you have more of these financial questions or how to pay people, stuff like that, there's a lot of contract companies that help with your taxes, with your payroll, things like that. But even within the community here, don't work in isolation. It's better to have more heads in the game, more people to offer support, and just, you know, keep coming back and keep reaching out, because the more we can help each other, the more you're going to be able to find people to fill all the gaps that you're finding in your process.
Absolutely. Make use of the sandbox and the GDEX community. You know, ask questions. It's better to ask a question and, you know, feel foolish or whatever for 30 seconds than to be in the middle of a lawsuit or something. So we're here and we're always around. All right. So we're going to end this one. We're going to do the next one. The goal here is to do these. We're going to try doing them twice a week for a bit. So the next one is going to be on Friday. So this Friday, which is what, April 3rd? And we're going to do that at 1 o'clock. So 1 o'clock Eastern. So if you are interested in, or you got any questions, or you want to come back, you know, we'll do it Friday at 1. So we'll be doing it Wednesdays at 3 Eastern and Fridays at 1 Eastern. But appreciate y'all being here. Everybody in the chat, everybody in Twitch. We may actually do a cross stream with, YouTube at some point. But for right now, appreciate y'all being here, and we'll see you on Friday.